There are weapons that destroy from a distance, and there are those that close the gap, that transform combat into something visceral, primal. The M2 flamethrower was not just an engineering tool. It was the personification of chemical terror, the ultimate word in fortification elimination. It didn't kill, it purified through fire. To understand M2, one must go beyond the battlefield. One must penetrate the silent foundries, the forgotten factories, where cold metal and volatile chemicals converged to create the breath of the American dragon. This is the story of a project born of necessity and frustration. The need to cleanse the dens and bunker switch were paralyzing the Allied advance in the Pacific. Its predecessor, the M1, was a brutal but flawed machine. Heavy, unstable, with limited range and a fuel mixture that required constant maintenance, Marines, they needed something lighter, more reliable, something that could transform the coral and concrete landscape into a controllable hell. Sometime between 1943 and 1944, in the laboratories and assembly lines, the answer was born: the flamethrower M2. The M2, a nitrogen pressurization system, 2 symmetrical side fuel tanks, an improved ignition nozzle. The sum of its parts was less a weapon and more a thermodynamic system for delivering terror. The heart of the machine was its mixture. It wasn't pure gasoline, but napalm, a revolutionary chemical invention that would change the face of warfare. A thick, viscous gel, capable of clinging, defying water, burning with terrifying intensity for long, brutal seconds. The M2 was designed for napalm, elevating its range and psychological impact to an unprecedented level. Weighing around 68 pounds, approximately 31 kilograms, when loaded, it required a strong, determined man, often a volunteer, to carry it. The flamethrower operator, or torch, became a high-priority target. Carrying the M2 wasn't just carrying a weapon. It was carrying a target, and the promise of a swift and terrible end. The production of the M2 was an industrial secret, a race against time to arm assault troops for island operations. The factory, a labyrinth of steel and the smell of solvents, was where the fire took shape. The process began with the tanks, 2 precisely shaped steel cylinders. The pressure tank, usually the central one, later integrated or moved, contained nitrogen gas compressed to hundreds of pounds per square inch. This gas was not the propellant, but rather the heart of the weapon, pushing the fuel with constant force. The great engineering breakthrough was in the torch and ignition system. The M2 model used a gasoline and electric spark ignition system, a radical improvement over the M1's unreliable pyrotechnic igniters. By pulling the trigger, the operator first released the propellant gas, which forced the napalm through the hose and through the nozzle. At the end of the nozzle, a spark or a small burst of burning gasoline ignited the mixture. The result, a constant, cohesive, and fiery flow, with an effective range of over 40 meters. The pace of assembly was intense. Each valve, each welded joint, had to withstand the immense pressure of nitrogen and the corrosion from fuel additives. The lifespan of an M2 in the field might be only a day, but its construction had to be flawless. The M2's engineering didn't aim for long-term durability, but rather maximum destructive efficiency at the moment of use. The island battlefield was a web of fortifications. Caves dot pillboxes, nests of machine guns in coral reefs. Conventional weapons could only temporarily silence these positions. The M2 offered the ultimate solution: total saturation of the target. The operator advanced, often covered by suppressive fire, the hissing sound of nitrogen gas alerting him to his limited time. Upon pulling the trigger, the world around him fell silent, replaced by the roar of 1,000,000 BTUs. The impact of the M2 was both physical and psychological. For the troops inside the fortifications, there was no escape from the napalm. The heat was unbearable. For the enemy troops watching, it was pure horror. The M2 was not just a bunker destroyer, it was a morale destroyer. The mere presence of a flamethrower operator could force mass surrender. Historian S.L.A. Marshall wrote that it was the most formidable and most feared weapon ever introduced into the Pacific War. The M2, more than any other weapon, epitomized the brutality of the war of annihilation. After the conflict, the fire machine remained. The M2's design continued to influence subsequent flamethrowers, being adapted and modified for conflicts in Korea and Vietnam. Its simple and lethal engineering proved timeless. The factories that gave life to the flamethrower M2 have closed their doors. The secrets of its chemical composition and pressurization are now in declassified files. But its legacy endures. The M2 wasn't pretty, nor was it subtle. It was a pragmatic response to an unsolvable problem: how to dislodge the entrenched enemy without annihilating one's own forces. Its only aesthetic was that of brute power. And in every controlled napalm explosion, in every bunker silenced, he fulfilled his terrible promise. The dragon's breath was tamed by engineering and unleashed by necessity. And the world never forgot the destructive power of a weapon that transforms air into a river of liquid fire. The M2. The machine that brought hell to its targets.